The Grill is one of New York City's most luxurious fine dining restaurants and steakhouses. The establishment is housed within the old Four Seasons space, which was one of the most influential restaurants in U.S. history. In a way, The Grill is a revitalization of the Four Seasons for the modern era, but it doesn't come cheap when steaks can cost as much as $445. Still, I've always wanted to dine at The Grill, and I certainly had a meal to remember.
Beautiful day today here in New York City. Right now I'm at Central Park, but the real excitement comes later because I'll be going to a restaurant that I've been wanting to go to for years. Tonight, I'll be dining at The Grill, and I'm looking forward to this dinner for a few reasons. One, the restaurant is housed in the old Four Seasons space, which was one of the most influential restaurants in American history. The space is a true architectural gem, and it is without a doubt one of the most iconic dining rooms of New York City. The Grill, in some respects, is a sort of revitalization of the Four Seasons. That holds true with regards to the menu and the way how dishes are presented. There's a lot of tableside preparations, including a prime rib trolley cart and desserts that are flambéed. Honestly, if my dessert is not a fire hazard, I'm gonna be upset. The restaurant seems like a throwback to such a legendary era of New York City. It seems like a place Don Draper would dine at. Frankly, the restaurant just looks so damn cool, and I'm so excited to be fully immersed within it. But of course, the most important aspect of any restaurant is the menu, and their menu looks fantastic. Now, steak is the main focus of the restaurant, but really the whole menu is more so reflective of a refined fine dining establishment. There are, in fact, a number of non-steak courses that look spectacular, but tonight, I'm going for beef. With that being said, it is time now to head to The Grill.
The Grill is located in Midtown Manhattan, right off of Park Avenue, in the landmark Seagram building, which was designed by one of the most important architects of the 20th century, Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. As an architecture lover, I'm a fan of his, but I wasn't always. In fact, at first I thought his style was frankly boring, but after seeing some of his most notable buildings, I grew to appreciate the beauty and simplicity and just how revolutionary his work was. At the time, there was nothing like the Seagram building in New York City. Today, however, the structure blends in nicely with the surrounding skyscrapers. With the completion of the building in 1958, it was decided to construct a restaurant in the vacant space next to the building's lobby. That restaurant would come to be known as the Four Seasons. As the name implies, the establishment was themed around the seasons of the year and was thus one of the most notable restaurants and forerunners of seasonal cuisine. I first learned about the Four Seasons almost a decade ago when I read about it in Paul Friedman's excellent book, 10 Restaurants That Changed America. Since then, I've learned even more about the restaurant from various other books and articles. I was captivated by the restaurant's glamour, history, and culinary innovations, but sadly the Four Seasons was plagued by problems in its final years and even briefly moved to a new space before it closed for good in 2019. Thankfully, the major food group stepped in and took over the old Four Seasons space. The restaurant group is one of the most successful in New York City, having opened numerous hit restaurants like Carbone and the Michelin-starred Chorisi. Upon opening, the Grill received glowing reviews, including 3 stars from the New York Times. I was no doubt excited for my dinner, so I arrived at 5 p.m. on a Monday night for my reservation. Upon entering is a sort of lobby area with a coat check and stairs leading up to the main dining room. After checking in, I was ushered upstairs to my table, where I first got a glimpse of the Grill's bar with Richard Lippold's iconic bronze sculpture hanging above. Then I was seated at my table in the main dining room, which was absolutely stunning. While Mies van der Rohe designed the building, it was architect Philip Johnson who fashioned the interiors of the Four Seasons, which the Grill perfectly preserved. In fact, the Grill sort of had to because it's a landmarked dining room. I simply loved the look of the restaurant, with its soaring 20-foot-high ceilings, the warm mahogany panels, and the undulating curtains. As a fan of architecture, history, and dining, I thoroughly appreciated the interior of the Grill. While everything was quiet and subdued at first, since the restaurant just opened, that quickly changed as the Grill filled up and maintained an energy that was pure New York City. Once I settled in, I began to look over the menu. The grill features cuisine that is certainly a nod to the past, but at the same time are tried and true classics. There's a good variety of shellfish, a number of appetizers, and some very expensive soups. I thought that the seafood selection was great, which even included 3 different preparations of Dover sole. Courses like the honey mustard duckling and the larded squab were definitely intriguing, but I was there for beef. In terms of the steaks, there weren't many listed, but the standard cuts were offered, and the prime rib definitely received a strong focus as it served from a trolley. However, there's a line on the menu which states that there are additional cuts available. My server told me about some of them, which even included a $445 steak. Yeah, the grill is very expensive, but the Four Seasons was too, so in a way, the high prices were a sort of unfortunate extension of its legacy. In terms of beverages, the grill has a vast wine list, which even features some very impressive and expensive large format wines like a 3-liter 1993 Armand Rousseau Chambertin for $150,000. The grill also boasts a fantastic collection of Chateau d'Yquem. That night, however, I wanted a cocktail. There was a good selection of classic drinks, including a whole separate section for martinis. While I do love a good Vesper and Gibson, I figured I should stick with just the standard martini with gin and an olive. Now that was a fine martini. It was nice and strong and just hit the spot. Plus, drinking that cocktail felt appropriate when I was dining in a restaurant that hosted so many legendary 3-martini lunches in the past. Soon enough, I was presented with a nice looking bread basket featuring 3 different types of bread along with an herb butter. Now when having steak, it's important not to fill up on bread, but that can be hard to do at the grill because their bread is incredible. All 3 pieces were nice, fresh, and very flavorful. I particularly enjoyed the Parker House roll, which was warm and had the perfect sprinkling of finishing salt on top. The butter was fantastic as well. It was smooth as silk and added a rich taste to the bread. My dinner was off to a great start, but it was only going to get even better. Next up was my appetizer, the pasta alla presse, which included some impressive tableside preparation that utilized an antique duck press.
The squab, the guinea hen, got a little bit of the caramelized onions, bacon lardon, heirloom tomatoes, little thyme there.
Basically, that bowl of meat and vegetables was about to get pressed down in the duck press, resulting in a rich, meaty jus that would then be added to a pasta. Vegans and vegetarians, look away. I really enjoyed the tableside preparation. On one hand, it gave me more of an appreciation of what actually went into the dish that I was about to have, and on the other, that duck press was beautiful and it was a joy to see such a historic creation. In fact, just weeks before, when I was having dinner at the 3 Michelin-starred Le Prix Carillon in Paris, the restaurant utilized duck presses to serve as decorations in their spectacular dining room. Back at the grill, it wasn't long until I was presented with my pasta, complete with the meaty sauce that I saw made before me. In essence, it's a very simple dish, featuring a heap of yellow egg noodles, some grated cheese, and the sauce of course, and I couldn't wait to give it a try. To put it simply, that pasta was outstanding. In fact, it proved to be one of the best pasta dishes that I've had all year. First off, the noodles were perfectly cooked, but that dish was really all about the sauce. The pasta was more so a vessel to transfer it to my palate. That sauce was a flavor explosion. It was savory, rich, and meaty. I loved it. Unfortunately, I did accidentally get a speck of the sauce on my shirt, which upset me not because it added a slight blemish to my outfit, but for the fact that that mere speck didn't end up in my mouth. For me, that was a perfect course, although it would have been nice to have a bit more pasta, and it was expensive with a $43 price tag, but I have no regrets. That was a masterpiece. After finishing, it was time for the main event, the prime rib, which was prepared from a trolley. Once I was presented with my plate, I also got my prime rib topped with some fresh grated horseradish. Now that was a beautiful, thick slice of meat swimming in a pool of au jus. On the side were a couple of condiments to add to the meat, but the most unique thing about that prime rib was that it came with a deviled bone. In addition, I also ordered a side of the hash browns O'Brien. Everything looked spectacular and I couldn't wait to dig in, so I started with the prime rib. That first bite was amazing and took me to heaven. The meat was so tender, flavorful, and utterly delicious. It was perfectly cooked too, with an even rosy pink color, but you sort of expect that at a restaurant of the grill's caliber, especially when it comes with a $105 price tag. The beef was spit roasted and slowly cooked, and the result was apparent. I also particularly enjoyed the thick and heavily seasoned crust on the meat. It was excellent. The jus was fantastic as well, which was made from brisket. In fact, about halfway through my cut, the man operating the prime rib trolley offered me a topping up of the au jus, which I happily accepted. That piece of meat was so good on its own that I almost forgot about the two condiments that came with it, which included a horseradish cream and a Dijon mustard. Both of them were great, but out of the two, I preferred the more traditional horseradish cream. Overall, that was a great prime rib, and I've had a lot of excellent prime ribs lately, but the grill's example certainly ranks near the top. However, none of the other prime ribs that I've had have come with a deviled bone. My server instructed me that it should be eaten with my hands, just like barbecue. While I loved the prime rib, I think that I enjoyed that bone just as much. It was amazing.
Oh, it's so good. Amazing. Thank you.
The meat was so tender and moist, it was top-tier barbecue. Plus, the Montreal-style seasoning on the meat was just so damn good. Honestly, I did not expect to be eating barbecue in a suit with my hands in one of the most elegant restaurants in New York City, but I was loving it. Although, it would have been nice to have a wet wipe with that one. In addition to the prime rib, I was really enjoying my side dish of the hash browns O'Brien. Now, it wasn't a very large side. I would say it's more suitable for an individual rather than a dish to be shared. Those were great hash browns though. They were fluffy and flavorful, and I loved the heap of peppers on top as they contributed a welcomed additional flavor profile. However, when it comes to hash browns, I do prefer them to have a nice crispy exterior and a fluffy interior. As a result, I would choose the hash browns from Gallagher's Steakhouse over the grill's offering, which I still really enjoyed. Overall, my prime rib and side were incredible, but of course, I saved room for dessert. The grill's dessert menu, just like the restaurant's main menu, featured a number of classics. They all sounded good to me, but because of my desire to have a dessert bathed in flames, I just had to go with the Baked Alaska. The pyrotechnics definitely added a nice touch to an already epic looking dessert, which I couldn't wait to try. To put it simply, that Baked Alaska ticked all the boxes. In fact, that was the best Baked Alaska that I've ever had. But to be fair, I haven't had many. The dish was said to have been created at the legendary New York restaurant Delmonico's in the 19th century. The grill's Baked Alaska was honey almond flavored. For me, what made the dish a winner was its textures. They were all on point. Every Baked Alaska that I've had in the past, I felt that the ice cream was either too frozen or the meringue shell was too dense. It was always something. The grill's Baked Alaska was texturally perfect, and I loved the honey almond flavor. My dinner certainly ended on a high note, but it wasn't quite over yet. After finishing, I got to enjoy 2 delightful raspberry cookies, which helped to fortify me for the scariest part of the evening, the bill. That night, my bill came to $236.27, but with my tip, I spent a bit over $280. Now that was the most expensive non-Michelin star meal that I've ever had, but it came from a restaurant that I've been wanting to dine at for a while, and I couldn't have been more satisfied with my experience. As I was leaving, a kind employee asked if I would like to see the pool room, which I absolutely did. When the Four Seasons was around, the restaurant occupied both the grill and the pool control room. Today, the space is used mainly for private events. Just like the grill, the dining room is iconic, and I was very grateful to get a glimpse of it. In fact, in the final days of the Four Seasons, the restaurant's policies were a bit more relaxed, and numerous patrons took a dip in the pool.
So that was one hell of a meal. I absolutely love that. The grill absolutely lived up to the hype. Everything I had was excellent. Now for me, it felt so cool to be in such an absolutely beautiful and historic restaurant space. The grill was just stunning. As a fan of culinary history and as a fan of architecture, I probably appreciated the experience a little more than the average diner. But still, no matter who you are, you cannot escape the fact that that is a beautiful restaurant. But damn, that was an expensive restaurant. I mean, there's no going out for me this week. I have got to save a bit of my money. But it was worth it for me. It is indeed a special occasion type of restaurant. Now, there are indeed more affordable steakhouses that offer steak as good, if not better, for less. But the whole experience of the grill was unique. At the same time, however, there are things on the grill's menu that you're not getting anywhere else. I mean, the duck press pasta. That will not be an Olive Garden special anytime soon. For me, it was a combination of the food, the service, the atmosphere, the history of the place that made the grill really special. Like I said before, it is not an everyday type of restaurant, but it is perfect for a special occasion, and tonight was definitely a special meal. To sum it up, I love the grill. It is a very luxurious place for steak, and just in general, a great place for a meal. Now, I would have loved to have gone to the Four Seasons back in the day, but I'm glad the grill is there to sort of carry on that torch of such a historic space for a restaurant. In conclusion, I had a great dinner at the grill today. It is a phenomenal place for steak, and I will definitely be back.